Okay, I'm glad we got all of our technical things together today. Crossing fingers.
It'll be smooth. Mercury is no longer in braids. So we got this. I've already grabbed my cocktail.
Thank you guys for joining us. It is Tuesday, August 27th, 2020, and we are here for another beautiful happy hour. I'm really excited for this episode, this time that we're spending with two amazing people. I'm going to let Shalise do our formal intro, and then we're going to get into it.
Yes. So over there is Miss Long, and I'm Sister Rogers, and we're your business aunties helping you get to that bag. So welcome to Synergy Sesh Happy Hour. This is where we discuss business 101 topics such as an introduction to entrepreneurship, financial management, legalities, digital marketing, things to kind of help you and your business grow while having some honest conversations about cannabis industry shenanigans. So let's just hop into it because I'm excited too.
Yeah, today we have not one but two amazing people joining us today, Evelyn LaChapelle and Pilar DeJesus, as we dive into topics around reentry, repair, expungement, the need for decriminalization, and much more. As the nation continues to explode due to the televised exposure of police brutality and the lack of action to hold oppressors accountable, simultaneously to the nonstop growth of the cannabis industry. And here at Synergy Sesh, we want to have tangible conversations that provide information, tools for you to create and be a part of the change that is happening and that needs to happen. And with that, I'm going to introduce our first guest, Evelyn LaChapelle. Evelyn was convicted in federal court for depositing cannabis profits into her bank account in 2013. She received a 7-year sentence and 4 years probation as a first-time nonviolent offender. She was released February 2019 after serving 5 years in custody. Looking forward to rebuilding her life in Northern California. She quickly gained employment at Prominent Hotel as the catering and sales coordinator. And 2 months later, she was terminated after a coworker discovered her conviction. She then joined the Last Prisoner Project as an ambassador and uses her story to spread the message of prison reform, reentry obstacles, and our need to decriminalize marijuana. She has found her place in the legal cannabis industry as the community engagement manager at Vertosa. I'm forever inspired by her strength and determination to bounce back. Welcome, Evelyn. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to bring you in.
Yay! Thank you for having me. Let's see. There we go. I think that's
cheers to you. Cheers to you for sure.
Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers.
For sure. So thank you, Evelyn, for joining us today. I'm just too excited. Why don't you, say hello to the people?
Hello to the people. I never hear that bio, so I was like, "That's me. That was me. I did do that for years, right?" I am normally the one saying, "Oh, I sat in prison," but when you read it, it was like, I really sat in prison,
girl.
So yeah, I am here. Hello, people. It is a story that I didn't think would define me, but the story is shifting, and life is 2020 sending blessings, and so I'm glad that you and appreciate you all having me here to spread the word, share the story.
Girl, I just want to get into this, and I think our first question will be, how has life this last year overall been? February 2019 was when you were released. What are some of the positive things? What are some challenges that you face due to your conviction and subsequent record? Let's get into some of these things and really talk about what are the solutions.
Right. So the last year, I would say, has really been a 360, right? Because we February 2019, so we're a little past the year, but I got that ankle monitor cut off, and I was like, woo, yes, the world is mine. There's no more restrictions. I have completed that sentence. I've said this before, when you sit in prison for whatever, for that amount of time, the system has convinced you that you are guilty, you are a criminal, and you deserve to be there. I didn't think that going in there. I didn't think I deserved it. I fought the case. I never admitted to guilt because I didn't know that you could be guilty for cannabis profits. But after being there for the length of time that I was there, you are convinced that you have done something terribly wrong. And so February 1st, 2019, they cut off the ankle monitor. I'm like, okay, that's done. I'm not going to think about it. It is beyond me. And now I'm going to put my best foot forward in reestablishing my life. I have a daughter. There's bills that need to get paid. And so I'm going to go back to work and do what I know how to do as a catering and sales coordinator at a hotel in San Francisco. So I'm like, yes, right? Like, I'm back where I left off at. I'm on this BART every day, commuting, like half the world is. And then the lady Googled my name. I'm assuming it's a lady, it could be a man, but Googled my name. I was let go. And then it was like the weight of the world had sort of fallen on my shoulder. And I remember like calling my mom and crying. She's like, don't cry. And then I also remember a girlfriend prior to that texting me, you know, how's it going? I was like, it feels unreal. It feels like any moment someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and tell me I don't belong here, because I was just in prison for 5 years. So I don't even belong at this computer with these people doing this job. And I got the tap on the shoulder, and I don't belong there. And 2020 has proven that I didn't belong there. And I'm so blessed that that lady tapped me on my shoulder. It definitely, you know, the year sort of really flipped for me. It really started off pretty down and out, a little depressed about it. Shortly after that, so that was February. In June, I got connected with Last Prisoner Project. And then here we are, you know, a year later in August. And I count my blessings that that lady Googled my name, that they tapped me on my shoulder and told me to pack my belongings. Side note, even sent me my belongings. She sent me a box of pads that I had left in the desk. How rude was that? I have to share that video with you too.
Oh, Lord.
Like, that just sent me over the top. Yeah. But it's been, I didn't belong there.
Right.
I did not experience what I experienced for nothing. It is turning into something. And I'm just a strong believer that when doors close, new ones open. And so that has been the year for me. I'm in a really good space.
Good. That's amazing to hear. That is amazing. And with that, there's a whole conversation about just energy and how you perceive things that happen in your life and are able to take a hold of that and, you know, turn it into something or nothing. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I do want to talk about some of the challenges that you faced and like getting into them a bit more. And you overcame so much, and you know you're working at Vertosa now. You're part of the Last Prisoners Project. You're really transforming your situation, but that is sometimes a difficult thing to do, especially like thinking about, you know, being on probation and being a part of the cannabis industry and the opportunities to do that. But then it gets into how do you create a situation where those people that are coming back can participate if they want to.
They want to, because they got to. I will acknowledge that my situation is rare, right? Like, so I don't want to be so caught up in my blessings that an audience would assume that this is an easy route for people being released from prison, because it is not. And I am still friends with people who have not been given a platform to just sort of live out their life. Challenges, I would say number one challenge is reconnecting. So what is not addressed, and what I've never addressed, I don't think publicly, is it's like a mental challenge to readjust to being home, to reconnecting. If you have children, family, they have set expectations on who you're going to be when you come home. Unfortunately, I did not meet any of those expectations, right? I've had a lot of time, and I'm learning, unfortunately, that in the real world, you don't have that time for self-reflection, enlightenment, reading. You just don't have it. And so I am not the same person. And so having to be reacquainted is a major transition. And I would say that that is our biggest challenge, because for some people, you will revert back to to be a people pleaser. You will revert back to who they want you to be. I'm currently refusing to do that. And then on a more systematic challenge, I mean, there's just so many, right? Like, I can't travel 45 minutes without probation. I just had an incident where my daughter was in Los Angeles and I needed to get her. I need to go get my daughter now. Probation still hasn't responded. That was 3 weeks ago. Working in the legal cannabis industry, I have to make sure that I'm not plant touching, which is, to me, crazy, because it's a legal industry. So why would I not be allowed to do it? I was just gifted, right? Like a wonderful boyfriend who gifted me a car that I love, that just fits my personality, but it's a black Benz with black tinted windows, and I feel like a target. I'm like, I can't drive this because, and I love it, but I know that I will be more subject to get pulled over in that car, which I maybe would not care about if I wasn't a felon. And here in Oakland, I had to register as I'm a registered drug offender. And it doesn't specify what drug that is. So if I get pulled over, they run my name. Baby girl, you are a registered drug offender. Get out of the car, search. Like, all of these things that in 2020, we do not want to encounter the police. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so those are all major challenges. Like, why can't
why can't you? And so I think the question I want to go into is, what is the process and situation for getting those things turned around? Like, is that what expungement would help do, or what other processes, in addition to expungement, are going to create pathways for people who are in similar situations to be able to navigate life a little bit easier when trying to re-enter into society?
Yes, expungement is the answer. It is the key, but not if you're a federal inmate. Mm-hmm. And so for me, and I don't want the audience to think that I am an oddball out, right? Because anytime you're crossing state lines, it becomes a federal offense. And so let's imagine that's a lot of cannabis offenders. For federal inmates, there is no expungement. There is only clemency. And clemency only comes from the President of the United States. Mm-hmm. And I have a strong opinion about the current administration, but I do also feel that that should not be left to one person. Mm-hmm. Regardless if we have a blue or red president in office. Clemency, there's so many inmates. I wish I had the number, but we know that this country houses the most inmates, more than any other country in the world. So there's a lot of us. And for federal inmates, the only person who can offer any relief is the President of the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, I think according to the statistics, 78,000 people are in federal prison for a drug offense, and there's like 191,000 people in state prisons for drug offenses. And then just to even like break it down by what offenses are, what they might be, and then it gets even more like murkier when it comes to race, especially with like the Latinx like community, because there are so many white passing Latinx people that they can like easily just slip into the white category, and all of these other things impact these statistics. So even from what I'm hearing, it sounds like when you came back, it was like a period of having to get to relearn yourself in this new environment. And then almost like you had like being reverted to being a teenager, where you feel the pressure of like listening to your elders or listening to the people who are in authority, who are telling you what you're supposed to be doing, and trying to please them, but then kind of having to come to the terms of, I can't please you. At some point, you cease to be on this earth, and I have to continue living for me and mine. And so I can't keep thinking and living my life in that manner. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
And in that fear, right? So when I considered even trading the car, and I had a good friend to me and was like, you deserve it. Like when you get pulled over, you're not a drug offender, you're a businesswoman. You go to work every day. You can afford it. But here,
yeah,
I'm be honest, I listen to my music way loud. So here I know what I'm seen as soon as I give someone my ID. And you're right, it's like being a teenager again. It's about don't be in the wrong places. Don't, turn your music down, checking over your shoulder. Am I allowed to be here? What's coming out of my mouth? And all of those things.
Like a political correctness that like none of us should have to abide by because we're humans.
And we're adults.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
This conversation is getting too good, and I need our next guest to be a part of this conversation because it's getting too good. It's getting too good,
y'all. Yeah. And then I feel like even in the realm of wanting to talk more about expungement and how people can even have access to those services, this is exactly where Pilar will fit in. So our next guest that will be on the screen with us is Pilar DeJesus. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
Pilar is a born leader, born and raised in East Harlem. She is a native New Yorker like myself. She's a passionate Latina who thrives on demolishing the prison industrial complex. She wants to end the war on drugs and end the war on Black and Latino peoples. She's all about helping our communities heal from the harms of racial and economic and social oppression. She also takes communities and helps them heal and provides support and guidance for her neighbors and even small businesses. In East Harlem, she has lots of pride. Her Puerto Rican and Mexican heritage fuels her passion for making sure New York remains a safe haven for immigrants. I'm sorry, y'all. I had too much drink already.
No, loving this bio, honey. Keep it.
I know, and I'm like, no, you're doing a great job.
Yes. And these immigrants that she helps are not just immigrants, they're people. And these are workers, currently are essential workers who are paving the way, who have been paving the way historically to shape New York City. And above all, she's a proud aunt working to build a better future for her nephews and her niece. And I'm all about
They're the children of the future, I'm, thank you.
Welcome.
So and I've also I don't put that in my bio as much, like not yet, because my case isn't completely over. But I've also last year was my first experience with my home being raided and having to go. I've been arrested a few times for stupid shit, for being Latina, for being passionate, for being loud. But last year was the first time I actually experienced a raid, went through the actual process of spending time on Rikers Island, I had an A1 felony charge, where expungement kind of comes into play in this. And it's weird how the universe works in the ways that it works. And so here I am. I'm a very passionate person. I'm born and raised in East Harlem. Our communities and our people have been targeted for many years, right? And so my family has been targeted for many years. I'm half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. And, just being here in my community, just seeing so many things, and then also being like a strong advocate, I've been through a lot of experiences. And so sometimes my bio doesn't really say, but I've been through it all. I've even been through the corporate bullshit, witnessed that even with pharmaceuticals, how they oppress us and like, oh, this medicine's going to heal you. And actually it's just a way to keep us like, enslaved. And then marijuana is looked at as the enemy, and like psychedelics are looked at as the enemy. But yeah, I'm a passionate Latina who is, my day job is I'm a tenant advocacy coordinator with Take Root Justice. So my day job is literally working with community-based organizations who are organizing tenants and building leadership in tenant associations and going after, protecting their rights, because again, like we're being targeted in so many things and in so many areas, and housing is always the main one, especially us as people as color. And I don't know about you, but if you don't have housing, everything else falls apart. And I've been there where like it's like you can't go to work, your kids, going to school. They're like, housing is like the heart, it's the soul of the way we live, right? And the fact that it's not even a human right blows my mind. I don't think that we should be paying and people should be profiting off of housing. And so my day job is literally in the working with organizations, because the law sucks. I work technically at a law firm, but I say technically because that's what we are, but we don't really operate in the ways that other law firms work. We're more community lawyering, and that's just been our motto for 14 years. And it's always about organizing first, because the law is not helpful. And as you've mentioned, all the ways you're going through with the ways the system is still oppressing you, and it's still oppressing me. Even me, I can't see my niece still. Because of my conviction, I still can't see my niece, and that's partially because her father is not a good human, and he banks on the system to work to help him be this bad human. And so it's just so many things. And so again, with the house, I do a lot of this housing work because again, my people, if you look at public housing, look at how the conditions and the ways that people are living when you live in public housing. And, we talk about COVID, but like no one's thinking about the mold and the lead that people are living in that way. But they're like, oh, you selling marijuana and you have a drug conviction, you're a bad person. But God forbid, NYCHA be held accountable for the deaths, the murders, the health conditions that they have caused people, the mental health conditions that they have caused, on top of everything, all the other
holding
systems.
up funding
so
even for
I do that by day. But I'm a very passionate. I was a co-founder of a worker co-op that was focused on a marijuana worker co-op here in New York City that was focusing on educating our communities on the benefits of one owning what is a co-op, how to become a co-op owner. And because when you have these convictions, it comes with a lot of barriers, 48,000 plus thousand barriers to be specific, exact. And so that includes you getting housing. And if you don't have housing, how do you live? And that is even crazy that your criminal record or have a job, like you said, they looked you up and oh my God, you're a bad human being. This shit is crazy.
I couldn't even come home to my mother.
That's a lot of where my passion comes from. I'm also an Aries, so I'm a fire sign, and I'm really just tired. I've also ran for office twice here in East Harlem against one of the she was at the time, the most powerful person because she was the speaker of the city. I mean, I got 30% of the votes, but I don't run for power, right? I ran because my people don't even understand how the local systems were working against them. And then they're, praising these people who were like doing this. And so I am, I'm a community advocate organizer. I'm sorry, is that telling me to slow down?
No, sorry.
I can't hear you guys.
Can you not hear us? Hold on. Okay, hold on.
Oh, my mic is muted?
Wait, can you hear me now?
Should I
Can
still keep
anyone hear
going?
me?
I can hear you.
Okay, hold on,
I'm so
Pilar.
confused.
Okay, hold on.
Because I was like, are you saying some good stuff? I want to know.
Okay, I'm gonna
I'm
bring up.
back, but I still can't hear you.
Oh no, we're always having technical
This is why
issues.
sign language is important. No.
It is
I forgot it.
because
I
we
honestly forgot it. This.
we're
All
getting
I
into.
remember is this, and I don't even know what that means no more.
Hold on. Oh God,
I don't even know what that means.
sorry. Okay, I'm trying to unmute, but it's still
Should I
not.
keep going?
No, hold on 1 second. Okay,
I'm gonna light this in.
we're gonna. Yep, go ahead and light up because we're gonna figure this out. So
All
Shalice
right.
can hear me, Evelyn can hear me, but
The audience can hear us all. It just
I
came
think
to
you said
time.
keep going. Is that the countdown?
no. I'm trying to figure out why Pilar can't hear us.
But you can
Right.
probably chat with her.
Hold on.
Yeah. Is
Chat.
your volume on your computer all the way up, Pilar?
Good one. She can't hear you, so it'll
I'm like,
Just like,
I could keep talking, but I gotta be like, stop, Pilar.
Does anyone know how to chat with her?
I feel like this is low key a meme. It's like when it's actually too loud. You're like, I
I
can't hear
wish I
you.
could read lips.
check,
Hear you.
check the chat. Check the chat.
I try
Let me
headphones.
see if that works.
Okay, she's gonna try the headphones. Because of my conviction, I couldn't come home to my mom. She had housing.
Oh,
You can't be in the house. You can't even be in the house.
Should I lock?
With
Wow.
consent.
oh my goodness. Hold on, because I really want to talk about this, but I also want to put Pilar in. Pilar, can you still not hear us? No, she can't. Pilar, can you hear us?
I see your lips moving, but I can't hear anything.
Okay, I need Pilar.
I'll keep talking, you know.
I need Pilar to exit and come back in. And you know what? The fact that we have these technical difficulties is like a part of Synergy Sesh Happy Hour because it
I
literally
just love all the smiles.
every time. So Shalice, can you text Pilar? Have her and come back in. Check your text messages.
I'm trying to.
Okay,
I'll exit and come back. All right.
Yeah.
How do I do that? That's
The
a good
X.
question.
Remember we
See,
tried
I should have practiced this when I. Oh,
She was like, I
that's
should
a
have
lot
practiced
out. I
this.
just gotta
Well, thank you guys for our technical difficulties.
All right.
It's a thing. We're real live and it's extra live at this point. But I really I agree with Tiana. I really wanted Pilar to be a part of this side of the conversation because the ability to not be able to go back home, essentially, like forget where the place is, you consider it home, and it's a place that you feel in, a place where you possibly have a room with like with your own things already in there, with your own posters and something that makes you feel. Can you hear us, sis?
I can hear you now.
That's love.
back.
I'm a toast to that one.
Yeah, you know, at one point, cheers. I was like, maybe this is the way it goes. I don't hear them if I keep talking and it's silent. All right, this is my first time. So I'm gonna go. This is my first time on this YouTube.
No, and we are
I love it.
We learned about you, sis, and we appreciated everything that you were saying, but we wanted to bring this conversation in because it's so important and it's so powerful. And yes, housing is so important. I'm a realtor, both licensed both in California and New Jersey, and I spend a lot of time on both coasts and really understanding the dynamics of housing in all of these places and really recognizing that housing is a part of how you are able to live, work, and thrive wherever you are. Housing, lack of housing, housing and accessibility is also a form of oppression that has been a systemic issue in addition to all of the other things. So, you know, when we think about expungement and how that affects, you know, housing and the things that it can correct, help correct, help us get past. I want to talk more about that and how, I guess, if you could tell us.
Lost my housing. I could have lost my housing.
Yeah, and if you could tell us about how National Expungement Week plays into that and how people can get involved in what, and let's have a larger conversation about what expungement needs to be able to do for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, going back to the housing really quickly, you know, like even in my own situation with my criminal case, and unfortunately, it's killing my soul that I technically had to plead guilty, and I say technically because I was forced, right? I'm forced, and that's part of the reason I'm forced is because the charge that I had was it's automatic 8 years. So and if you know anything about the jury pool here in New York, you will be found guilty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
but Manhattan.
Yeah, Manhattan, there's no one of your peers here. I mean, this is why also like when we talk about the events, we're going to talk about the importance of being on juries. But the reason why, again, because of the charge, and I'm not guilty of this. And, you know, who's really guilty too? But also like, I'm not guilty, but I had to plead guilty. But then because if I pleaded guilty even for the lesser charge, which was like criminal facilitation, it still comes with a charge, a misdemeanor.
Mm-hmm.
So that misdemeanor still jeopardized my housing because I live in what they call a low income co-op. So it's subsidized. So, and then the incident happened here. So I was like, whoa, I'll plead, you know, I don't want to plead guilty, but if I have to, I will. But then how do I get that taken off my record? Because then that gives the landlord an opportunity to attack me in my housing. So like, when we talk about that, our criminal record, it's forever, it's a lifetime. And that's why expungement, sealing, and all of these things are so important. If, again, these states do it the right way, because so many of the states, especially New York, we don't have the greatest expungement laws. Like right now, you can't have 2 felonies, you can't have a misdemeanor in this, and you can't have gotten arrested in 10 years. Like there's just so many like
restrictions
that make you qualify.
Yeah.
And so for mines, to get mine expunged, what I had to do is I had to like commit to, all right, I'm going to do 280 hours of community service. All my work is community service. All I do is for the community. Mm-hmm. This incident that happened was just another example of the war on us. Mm-hmm. Here I am. I had a letter from assemblymen, elected officials at my arraignment. Even with all the resources that I had, I still had to get processed, and they still wanted $100,000 from me. Mm-hmm. They were like, "Yeah, you're a criminal." And even so, like again, let's really go. You know, that's a whole different other topic.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic, right?
Like expungement here in New York is not real. So in order for me to get that misdemeanor expunged, I, for my situation, had to like agree to do 280 hours of community service when I'm in Albany, when I'm helping tenants, when I'm in lobby, and I'm doing all these other things. I'm trying to see my niece. I love my nieces and my nephews. Like I said, this is my pride and joy. I don't have children of my own, but I take pride in why we do this is for the future. Why do we want our children to continue to right?
Absolutely. Yeah, these all kind of like roadblocks on the like in the way to regenerative services, and regenerative services all revolve around expungement. It revolves around housing. It revolves around job training. It revolves around mental health services. And these are kind of the core of each of the points that I think both of you have touched on. And like a bit more background information, Pilar and I met because we're both founding board members of the New York State Normal. And that's where I also learned that Pilar is the New York State coordinator for National Expungement Week. And I just wanted to make sure that you were a part of this conversation, not only from private conversations that we previously had and feeling like, oh, she would be such a great addition to this, but then also you being able to provide more information about what National Expungement Week is, how it's supposed to actually help people, how that even varies from state to state. So can you speak a bit more on that?
So National Expungement Week, which was started about 3 years ago, and New York became a part of it last year for the first time, like literally last minute, because our laws here are so terrible when it comes to this that it was like, what are we gonna do? We can't like act like there's some states. So Expungement Week focuses on, it started off on a specific week that was like the vision of the founder, like this specific week we're going to have all these states participate in helping people either be educated on what the process is on expungement and sealing is, and get their record expunged at these clinics. So it always happens the last week of September, and this year that week is the 19th to the 26th. And so each state coordinates and organizes events according to their laws in their state or county. These events where there either be a clinic where you can come in and get your record expunged and work to that process, get your rap sheet, get a copy of your rap sheet, or because it's been an ongoing thing, because even though it's a week, it's a year-long process, and so there's a lot of information that's collected at these clinics and events, right? And so we are able to also identify like what stops people. You talked about this, about, oh, how do you drive while black, right? That's what it is. How do you drive while black? And the one thing, and I forgot what state specifically, I want to say it was DC, but I think this applies to a lot of states, especially those, where the enforcement is a lot more white and extra really white. Because in New York, yeah, it's aggressive, but there's those states in like Virginia where it's like, your broken tail light is broken, we're going to fuck with you. So there were states that were identified that even though the clinic couldn't actually expunge their record, what would be a good resource was paying for them to get their brake lights fixed. So that became part of expungement. So Expungement Week is about helping folks who are dealing with all the different ways.
Right. I'm glad that it has become customized to states and really figuring out what can be the next step in the road to creating a solution. And the fact that you talked about different states have different expungement laws and regulations. And with that comes a conversation around voting rights. And we talk about a lot the importance of civic engagement and being involved locally, statewide, nationally. However, voting is something that is, very important, just as important as I feel that, everyone's engagement in different levels, because it's not just the law that is going to change the outcome of how this country is working. It's definitely more than just that. But voting is a huge opportunity to take that step. And so I want to talk a little bit about how your voting rights, each of you, has been affected with criminal convictions. And I know you were talking a little bit, Evelyn, earlier about your thoughts on the administration. So let's get into that a little bit. And just let us know how your voting rights have been affected and what your guys' thoughts are on that.
So I don't have any voting rights. And I knew that coming home. And I recently shared on my Instagram a lady who voted while having a felony, was then sentenced to 5 years for exercising her right to vote. And I shared that in comparison to those who just lied to get their kids in USC and only got 2 months. I don't think either of the ladies needed to serve prison time, but if we're going to, let's level it out. And so I am definitely under the impression that I do not have the right to vote. And I was recently fact checked by someone who served time with me. And so she called her probation officer to be like, hey, what are my rights? Because federal inmates fall under, when we're on probation, because there is no parole, we fall under federal supervision the entire time of our probation. And so while you're on federal supervision, she was under the impression that we could vote. So long story is, she calls the probation officer, who is supposed to be our wingman into society, and he tells her, I don't know. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
We are, so you're in limbo.
So many barriers where it's not even just voting. You know, in New York State and a few other states, you can't even do you can't even call a game of bingo.
Because it's considered gambling.
It's gambling.
Wow.
It's a criminal record. You can't even, you can't even play a game of ping pong.
Yeah. What challenges of reentry have you both seen, especially as women?
Oh yeah, and the most people who are women in prison, especially for nonviolent crimes, are women. The women that I got to know in Rikers, and you know, I'm sure you got to know a lot of women. It was crazy. They were all in there for nonviolent crimes. One was just stealing, and she said, I would steal for big corporations. And she, you know, we had a real serious conversation about how jail for her is better, and how she got there, because she lost her job, which caused her to lose her housing, which caused her to use drugs. So then she started stealing, but still not from people, from like Macy's and stuff like that. But then she would go to jail, and at least she was provided a meal and housing, even though it wasn't the best meals. She was really clear about that. But it was housing. And, you know, it's really sad with the barriers again, because you're judged on this. You know, we have these officers being judged that, look, they're still being free.
Right. Murder. There's definitely an issue of accountability that, you know, America is lacking. And I think that when we think about voting, when we think about reentry, I think there's also a component of mental roadblocks that we face as well. And I want to talk a little bit, because mental health is so important, and that's also a constant theme of Synergy Sesh, because we're all about, you know, helping people get to the bag. And, you know, really, financial wealth is one of the ways that you can break these chains and get people out of these cycles of poverty that plague our communities. And, you know, cannabis is one vehicle, but there's, you know, it takes a lot to push a car and push an engine. And so when we talk about mental roadblocks, let's talk about the psychological obstacles and awakenings that occur as you are coming back into society, and what it really takes to put together what's going to prevent recidivism. Let's put it that way. What are the mental roadblocks that you have to overcome as a part of your journey to staying out and free?
I like that you said recidivism, because coming home, I knew, like, that's not me. I really don't. I'm not a criminal. I don't know how to be a criminal. So if I chose to be a criminal again, it would be me reaching to be a criminal. And then when I got fired, I was like, oh, but I could see how someone would go be a criminal again. I was introduced to I wish I had it. I didn't know we were going here, but there's a pyramid that shows like your basic needs, and then the next level, the next level, and the next level. So down here, it's like food and housing, clothing, and then you can be concerned about maybe education. And then it's not till you get to the very top that you can think about enlightenment or any of that.
Right.
And so when you come home and you can't afford housing, and they are refusing to give you any low income housing, how can you be concerned mentally about elevating above a criminal lifestyle when you don't have any place to live? And I've been home almost 2 years, and this week is the week that I can afford housing. This week, like today, I am working on securing a place for me and my child, but it's been almost 2 years. And I know I don't really play the man and woman card, right? But I know as a man, the need to provide a place to live and housing and for your children, or even the selfish ones who are providing for themselves. If we're not creating a space where you can elevate past where you're going to lay your head at, then recidivism is almost like duh. like
Yeah.
how else am I eating? How are my kids eating? I waitressed for 2 years at 2 different restaurants. And so when I came home, took away from me being able to spend time with my child, whom I hadn't been with for 5 years. Right. And so I'm doing 2 jobs a day. I'm barely seeing her. I'm in and out. She's been waiting for me to come home for 5 years, but I'm trying to maintain it. And so the system is not set up for you.
They'll use that against you. They'll use that against you. You're not working hard enough. You're not providing housing for your child.
Yeah,
you go back to jail.
What actually is enough? Yeah, and it sounds like all of these struggles don't even just end with release. And so, like, what, in both of your opinions, does restorative justice look like for people with prior convictions, no matter who's in the White House next year? Like, what your dream list? Like, what policies would
you say a check? Is that what you said?
Especially for cannabis inmates and non-violent offenders. And if it's not in the form, because there used to be like a gate check, right? So people who were getting out were getting a gate fee. Oh, and I've been engaged in this conversation on Instagram. The California firefighters from the prison system who make $2.90 an hour compared to the firefighters who are making close to $91,000 a year. I'm not asking that you pay an inmate $91,000 a year, but minimum wage would allow that inmate to come home and have a check that's either going to get them transportation or house, or place to stay, and a leg. But when I got released, I had $500 and something, but it was monies that had been sent to me from the outside. Right,
but you were owed so much more than that.
and it was given to me from mom,
like
dad,
the cannabis industry. We already see what they're making money off of those people who are a lot lighter and a lot whiter than us. They're making trillions of dollars.
Yes, they are.
Should not be coming home to 500.
So I say it starts with, how do we set people up for financial independence? Because without it, literally without financial independence, and I don't need to be a millionaire, although that is the goal, to operate, being released from prison with 100,000 obstacles, allow for someone to be able to come home and have a place to lay their head. Because like you said, there's so many inmates who are just grateful to be in prison because they have a place to lay their head. So yeah, I say start with a check.
Yeah. What about you, Pilar?
So it's a little bit of a struggle because, I understand how politics operate here in this country. I like to call it politics because they like to play tricks with our lives. I think very similar to what you just said, like we have to start making sure that we give the folks, we need to let them out. We need to let them out. We need to let them out of prisons, and we need to let them out where there's real, true healing and real services. Like right now, they'd be like, "Oh, we provide this service." All these agencies here in New York are like, "We provide this, we do that." Let me tell you, that's just BS. Okay. And that's just my experience, especially as a housing advocate, and then just being a community member, and then just being affected by all of this, and being involved in and talking to my neighbors. Like I talk to people. That's another thing our communities, we have to start doing. That's how we create unity, and not only talk to each other when uprisings happen, right? We need to start talking to each other and building that community and building a different system outside of the system, because the system is already like molded to work against us. And so when it comes to the elected officials, just because I know we're with time and I tend to ramble, again, it's hard because the politics, but we need them to be like these legislations and laws that get passed. They have to really help us. We have advocates and organizers and defenders that work really hard on these policies, and then these policies, like we worked here in New York for bail reform, and then they rolled it back in less than 45 days.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Right.
Like, you give it an opportunity.
Right. And then it takes so much more time until you're able to get it back in front of them. And
you're spending energy of the advocates who invested and the defenders who invested to help write this policy, because it's not easy and it's not fun. Right. So it's just like, stop wasting our time, and you tell us to do the work, to come out and vote, get the people to Albany,
right,
do that, and we're doing it. Then like stick to like doing something for the people and stop thinking as humans as profits, because that's what happens. We're profit in the prison industrial complex, which is why they're okay with continuing to keep these barriers that exist, right? Because if you become homeless, you're going to be forced to do A, B, C, and D. There was a point where I considered stripping or selling drugs. And I am not, I love to be naked. I'm a nudist. There's no different thing when you're stripping.
Right. There's a different pressure, different
drugs. I mean, technically we all hustle, but like, I'm gonna risk going to fucking prison. That's not mentally gonna help me. So when we bring these people back, one, we need true expungement. Like, this whole thing, I gotta wait 10 years. I could always be targeted. I target, and I will always be targeted based on my color and my gender, and based on my class, according to the society. So I'm never going to be able to technically truly have true expungement. And so at our expungement week events, we're going to even talk about the clean slate campaign that's talking about automatic expungements around especially nonviolent crimes. Like, again, I believe in prison, abolishing all prisons, and people were like, well, what about the killers? What about the rapists? What about the DV?
There's other ways to help correct
this. Mental,
really, and then also
people, prison is not it.
Help the front end. Like, let's be proactive. Let's put some more time and energy into being proactive and creating, programs and things that are proactive, versus all of the energy and money that we have to do being reactive, because we're not doing what we need to do with our schools.
We're not getting to the cause.
We're not getting to the core of the problem. And with that, I also want to, ask, because gems, tools, resources, what are, in addition to National Expungement Week, what are the organizations that you both are a part of, actively doing during this time? Where can people go to get involved and learn more? Evelyn, I heard you say something during, the Heart of Cannabis today. You mentioned Cannabis for Black Lives. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then, let's just get all of the tools and resources out there for the people that they can go and learn.
Yes, well, I do have a very short list. I do want to add to the being proactive, life skills. I sat in prison and I got out 12 months early because I went through a 500-hour life skills class that everyone thinks is bogus. We're only in it to get our time off. You will not imagine the tools that I learned, just the switch in my thinking, the rational thinking. You cannot pay me right now to argue with you. Those days are over and beyond and behind me. And I don't understand why I have to go to prison to learn those tools and why we're not teaching them now. We're talking about a great book, The Art of Communication, the 4 agreements, like all of these things that I had to go to prison to learn. And now I've come home to interact and deal with people who have not had that training and do not understand why my energy and my peace is more important than anything that anyone has to say to me. So I am first encouraging people to Google what life skills is and find a way to bring that into your lives, right? Like, it is my heart to organize a program for our children to learn how to communicate effectively. What's angry communication versus effective, and all of that.
Active.
I think it starts at home. For me, it started in prison, and that's backwards as hell. And then as far as organizations, I am involved with Last Prisoner Project, who has is more than an equity program. So, in the cannabis space, we see a lot of social equity programs that I applaud and appreciate that our systems have allowed.
Sorry, guys. What's happening? Oh, we lost her. Oh, we lost her. Oh,
I will say in the meantime, until she comes back on, that I believe that the both of you deserve voting rights because you are tax-paying citizens. You have re-entered society, you have gotten jobs, gainful employment, in which you must pay federal and local state taxes, which makes you a citizen of the United States of America, which means that you should have voting rights. And it's like, other than a simple
running rights, even rights to run, because I think even the record may affect that.
Yeah, people who want to then affect change by then becoming legislators themselves, or political activists, or just working in the political realm. I completely agree. It's because it's like people are not necessarily realizing that the cannabis industry is only legal because of people who have been defying the laws against it this whole time.
Right.
So you've essentially locked.
I've been a drug dealer all my life, apparently. They call me Easy Queen.
Right. It goes from 0 to 100 real quick. And it's like we're kind of treating not only our essential workers, but people who are in prison for cannabis offenses as though they're disposable workers or just disposable in general. And it's the same thing that's happening with our essential workers. We're treating them as disposable workers. Like, we don't care if you die, we don't care if you get sick. And this is such a backwards way of thinking that I think it is on our generation. And also just these conversations, and even within the cannabis industry, I think all of us can attest to coming around and meeting a tribe of people who are a lot more forward thinking, who are thinking about these, not just, I know the term like wraparound services, but I feel like there has to be another term for that, because it's all about the mindset behind these things. Even when we're talking about getting to the bag, financial literacy, being able to run a business, all of these other things rely on one's mindset. And you can't necessarily be financially literate, or you can gain some semblance of financial literacy. However, if your mind state is not correct, then you are still spending money in places that you don't necessarily need to be spending money. Like, you're avoiding getting your housing and all these other things. And we're out here collecting revenue while offenders are still paying for crimes and serving time. So
exactly.
As we talk about public cloud, for real. I want to. So two things. Evelyn's reconnecting, and we're almost at time. So Pilar, I want you to give us, a short list, long list, whatever you feel, of organizations that people can connect with to either help if they want to help, or that can get help if they need help.
Yeah, I think there's, here in New York City, we have a lot of different organizations, community-based organizations that are doing a lot of work in a lot of different areas. And the ones that I take pride in working with outside, either with expungement, national expungement, and outside of national expungement. One, I work at this organization, Take Root Justice, is one because we help with immigration. If you want to start you're considering starting a nonprofit or a worker co-op, we have attorneys to provide that service for free, and a lot of other different resources. But then there's also Vocal New York City, who does a lot of work around the legalization on marijuana. They were part of the coalition that I sit on with Drug Policy Alliance, Start Smart, New York City, and then we also have Legalize It Now. And so then we also have a lot of the housing advocates, again, like CASA, Met Council on Housing, For your reentry services, again, there's a lot of everyone is doing a lot of different things, but you have Brooklyn Movement Center who focuses on a lot of different areas when it comes to all the systems, whether it's housing, whether it's over policing, which is something that we didn't really talk about, but that Communities Unite for Police Reform, which is a coalition where Brooklyn Movement Center and a lot of us are part of, especially different sectors, so like immigration organizations, community-based organizations who are focusing on advocating and defending folks who are even dealing with that, because again, with cannabis, and we're going to have someone who's going to talk about that on our panel during expungement week. So those are just some of the ones to name, but I could share more. But again, these are the folks that are on the ground. Just Leadership USA, they've been part of the campaign focusing on closing Rikers Island, and I've talked to them because I have different opinions about closing Rikers, because from my understanding, I know developers want that land, so it's not really about the inhumane things that are happening, and it's about opening more jails when I'm all about abolishing them. So, but there's a lot of people on the ground that I just mentioned, and especially with Vocal New York, like they focus especially on a lot of different sectors, especially when people are coming back from prison, like being entered back into society. When it talks about three-quartered housing, they're one of the groups that have been focusing on the campaign, because some people come back and they can't get housing. So they're forced into these three-quarter housing where they're like in a room with 40 other people, and the state is paying like $200 or whatever $1,000, $200 to $1,000 for them to be there, and they're not in like 40 people in a room. And again, it could be like in New York City. So they're part of that campaign, along with so many other campaigns like release the elderly from prison, and so like Vocal and
what about the National Expungement Week happening here in New York? Like, how can people even
so National Expungement Week is happening this year, September 19th to the 26th. There's a couple of states participating, but specifically for New York, we are doing our kickoff event on the 19th, which is going to be a storytelling where we're going to have a couple of panelists just share their experiences in different sectors of the system. So immigration, being a public housing youth, what that even looks like, and just people who've been on Rikers and other prisons in the state. And then we're going to have another webinar. So 2 webinars and 1 in-person event. The second webinar will focus on what it is to get your record expunged here in New York, even though the process is not great. But we're going to educate the community on that process, also educate them on the reentry process, and also educate them on the Clean Slate campaign that I talked about automatic expungements, and then also update them on the cannabis automatic expungements that were supposed to take place at the end of this month. And then there's going to be other little things. And then the third event will be a dine and dialogue, where we're going to have a 5-course meal, where we're going to have, because it's COVID, we are very limited on the number of people that are going to be able to be in person, but it will be live streamed. And we're going to have discussions around different topics, like, again, the 48,000 barriers plus that come with having a criminal record, talk about the increasing of policing and gun violence in our communities. And we're hoping that Dave East is going to lead that. Let's manifest that, guys. Because we had like a formal confirmation. But it's mostly to serve the community and provide them like a meal, and then just like talk about all the topics. And so the 19th, the 23rd, the 26th of September.
We'll put together some type of
here in New York
poster message listing out those organizations, and thank you so much for sharing all of them, and we hope that everyone finds them useful. People in New York can utilize them to get assistance. Before we wrap up, I want to Evelyn, I want you to finish your list. You left off with Last Prisoners.
He was like,
And
I was like, what happened? It just went black too. So Last Prisoner Project is an organization. I was saying like social equity in cannabis is really the go-to when you're trying to give back. And I don't take away from any of the social equity programs. None of them focus on the 40,000 who are still incarcerated for cannabis. And so that is where Last Prisoner Project has put all of its efforts in. They've got a team of great lawyers who are putting together clemency packages that need to be either submitted to the state or the president if you are a federal inmate. And they're focused on, there's like 20 plus inmates right now today serving life for cannabis. And so Last Prisoner Project is really putting all of their efforts towards their release and their reentry. And so lastprisonerproject.org, if you want to know more stories, if you want to donate, if you want to share, because we know that 2020 is about getting the message out there. And so even if you're just hitting the share button, a lot of great content and information. Cannabis for Black Lives is new. It is newly formed August. I would say we were officially established. And what this group, and I'm a part of the leadership team, and what this group is coming together to do is to hold cannabis accountable, cannabis organizations accountable under 3 pillars: fundraising, people, like hiring practices, and then content share, like not hard things to grasp, but things that we sort of miss. And so we're coming together as a group. Every 2 months, we will highlight an organization. This month, it is Supernova, who is deciding to raise or wanting to raise or on the mission to raise $20,000. It's a surf fund for cannabis people who took an L during the rioting. So, you know, some of them took an L and had insurance premiums. Some of them took an L who had insurance premiums who couldn't afford the premium, right? Couldn't afford that deductible. And so they are raising $20,000 for that. And so Cannabis for Black Lives comes in. We have 30 member organizations. Vertosa is one of them, MedMen, some major players, some smaller players, but they are committing to donating to increase the Black hiring practices in the industry and to acknowledge and increase awareness about Black-owned and smaller cannabis companies in the space. And so that's the 2. Cannabis for Black Lives. You'll have to get with Tiana about where the website is going to be, because I'm gonna share it because I don't.
Okay, for sure, absolutely. No, we'll group and we'll get all this information, and we want to make sure like we're supporting these organizations that you guys are a part of, because I think that within this realm of things, no one knows better what are the needs of those previously incarcerated than the ones that have been previously incarcerated. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to have these conversations as not only advocates, but ensuring that the performative activists don't have the space, because there's too many resources, there's too many tools, there's too many people that have been through this that you can talk to and really ask the questions to get to the solutions. And we want to make sure that we're doing that through Synergy Sesh, through ourselves individually, and making sure that we're connecting with phenomenal women like yourself. So
thank you. And I would just add just really quickly, just to also make sure, you know, even though that, yeah, you know, these charges that are cannabis related are like really ridiculous, especially when we consider cannabis essential in certain states. But like all charges affect, right? Like, you know, my charge is not cannabis specific. And so like it still affects me in the same way. But so when we talk about this, it's just not only cannabis, but it's still just as ridiculous.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. And with that, before I let Shalise outro us, we had a quick conversation about energy and positive energy. And I'm actually reading this book currently called The Energy Bus by John Gordon. And I just want to read just like a small thing out of it at the end, because some of these conversations can be super heavy and it's a lot to digest and really think about, wow, how am I as an individual going to take on all of the obstacles that are in front of me? And I pride myself as being a positive energy, like butterfly. I just exude it, and that's the pollen that comes from my life, because positive energy just keeps you going. And so it says desire, vision, and focus help you turn the bus in the right direction. But positive energy is necessary to take you where you want to go. And as we continue in this crazy time and all try to stay safe and healthy, I want us to take that time to keep your energy as it needs to be. Let go of things that you cannot control. Be present in your life, in your family's life, and keep that positive energy flowing, because that's what's going to take us far, and that's what's going to give us the fuel to keep doing what we're doing every day to create the change that we wish to see. So again, thank you both for joining us today, for sure.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yes, like the incense sticks, like the Palo Santo, like the frankincense, like the myrrh, and heal your childhood traumas, because the ancestors before us weren't brave enough to do it. So here at Synergy Sesh, we provide practical, effective, and co-created solutions that move beyond financial and business advice and seeks to harmonize the relationship between personal and business growth and development. We first and foremost want to remind you to vote if you can. Continue to advocate for the causes you believe in. Advocacy looks different for everyone. Support the organizations that push forward different movements and boundaries. Hire more felons and people who have prior convictions, and fill out your 2020 census, because they don't want you to be counted.
Right.
We want to push your boundaries. So whether you're a budding entrepreneur or a seasoned business owner, we're excited about people who are excited about building on everything that they've already accomplished so far. And if you're willing to uplift yourself and uplift your mindset to bring about transformational change, we are about that life with you. So hit us up at our booking link in our bio. You can go to www.synergysesh.com. We love diving in. You can book sessions with us there. Of course, these lives are on YouTube, where you can come back and revisit them. And
so subscribe, okay?
Yes.
Press the subscribe button.
You always wanted to say
Right.
that.
Like, we always wanted to say that. And I'm loving this like Brady family bunch situation.
I know.
Thank you both so much for speaking with us. When I heard both of your stories, of course, Evelyn, I was like, that was the first that came to mind. People are out here, don't want to see you great through the internet service, don't be great, but you're back on here anyway. I believe that you will get everything that you didn't even imagine would even be coming your way. You are in your second year and you're killing it. You're gonna have that housing. You're gonna be able to drive around in that car comfortable. You'll be able to continue doing what you're doing, push forward change. You'll be able to see your niece and your nephew. You'll be able to hug them once again. Like, these
like
sound things. These are basic things, and that's what we want for you all. It's in the mindset, and even though that sounds so cliche, it's all about our mindset. We can either choose to think that everything is crumbling around us, or we can choose to believe that everything is crumbling as for a phoenix to rise. So
yes.
So thank you all.
Thank
And
you.
we out. Okay. We lit. Bye.
Like, all right, what happens now?